Michelle, thank you for having me at the studios here. I really appreciate you letting me return the favor and interview you now that you've interviewed me twice. You're always trying to focus it on somebody else or something else that's happening, but now you're the subject.
Yeah, I would much rather not be the subject. I would much rather ask the questions.
Welcome back to a podcast for creative people. I'm your host, Christopher Talon. I've been away from the podcast for a little bit, furiously writing, formatting, and working on the cover design with my friend Kirk Ross for my new book entitled Sleepwalker Angel. But there will be more info about that on a future episode. If you really want to know more about it now and possibly pre-order it, go to christophertalon.com. All right, today I've got a conversation with Michelle Dunaway, a woman who has been in television journalism for a while and has some really cool insights and experiences, like flying with the Blue Angels and rappelling down the side of one of Grand Rapids' tallest buildings. As co-host of the Fox17 Morning Mix in Grand Rapids, Michelle has seen a lot and interviewed anybody who's anybody in this town, including me, 2 times. We talked about a lot of things, including her journey into this profession, advice she has for people, and quite a bit more. So listen and enjoy this conversation with Michelle Dunaway, co-host of the Fox17 Morning Mix here in Grand Rapids, Michigan.
You didn't ask me this before you put the microphone in front of me, so I'm sorry. Hopefully I do all right.
At some point in the interview, I feel like you're going to start taking over and asking me questions, so I'm going to keep an eye out for that.
Okay, yes.
Yeah.
Keep me in line.
But I guess that's as good a place to start as any. Is you've interviewed me twice now on Fox17 Morning Mix. Thank you, by the way, for having me on. The thing that I want to start with is that when I first came on the show, I was in the green room by myself because I like to get places early if possible. And at some point, I was just staring at the Gordon Ramsay poster, and I was like, what am I doing here? What if I accidentally swear or I sneeze all over you while you're interviewing me, and it goes viral for all the wrong reasons, and everyone's like, what a jerk this guy is. But then Andrea Shaner, who was on the show earlier, shout out to Andrea, producer extraordinaire.
Yes, big shout out to A.
She came to get me, was like, Michelle's going to interview you. You're going to be on the couch over here. She's going to talk to you for 3 or 4 minutes. Just try to relax and take your cues from her. She's going to be great. She's got you. When I sat down on that couch, my mind just went blank. And all of a sudden I heard you say my name and I was just like, wait, what? What's happening? But and I talked to Andrea afterwards. She's like, oh yeah, she's good at this. You have this way of really looking at somebody and deeply connecting with them. And, the way that you, very good eye contact, very good, I really want to hear what you actually have to say. This isn't just my job. You have a very welcoming presence about you. And I was wondering, is that something that you've kind of always had, or have you honed that skill of looking at somebody, getting them to dial into you and just kind of...
Well, I'll say it's a little of both. Thank you for the compliments.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. And, being in this job, I inherently am a curious person, and I love to hear people's stories. I love it when people are passionate about what they do and what they're representing or whatever they're here to talk about. If they're passionate about it, I get passionate about it.
Yeah.
And so, but then also over the years, you learn ways to be able to make people feel comfortable when they're sitting on TV, because that's, for most people, is not a very comfortable place to be.
Yeah.
So that eye contact, I say I'm like a human bobblehead. I shake my head up and down because I am listening.
Yeah.
I want you to know that. And keep going, right? I'm like, come on, keep talking, and so I really want to try to, connect with that person as much as possible. And that has come with time, but I also am just inherently curious.
I was going to say, did you have people that you kind of studied and go, oh, that's how you get somebody to calm down. That's how you get somebody in a rhythm.
I think obviously as being a news person, you just become a kind of a news junkie. You watch a lot, but CBS Sunday Morning is one of my favorite shows. I love 60 Minutes. Shout out to CBS. I know I work for a Fox affiliate, but they do really well. And those are people I love to watch. But, it also just comes with doing it. You know, nothing's like actually being there and practicing every single day. So You just figure out what works. And then also different people require different things, and you just kind of have to try to read them and, what'll make them feel good. The thing is that I'm lucky is that most of the time when I have people here, we're talking about good things and positive stories.
Yeah.
And so, and usually it's something that they're very well versed in. So I kind of go by the rule of, I'm not going to ask you a question you don't know the answer to. That's only burned me like a couple times ever. And it was just random, like stupid dates or something. But yeah, I mean, that's, I want people to feel comfortable and be like, this is your platform. Please share with our viewers what you want to talk about.
I'm wondering if you've ever had somebody that was actually, and you don't have to say names or anything, but that was like the worst case scenario of what I worried my interview would be, where somebody was just like, what are we here for?
It happens.
Yeah.
Definitely. And you help them along and you do the best you can and
kind of lead them. So you're here to do this, right? Tell us about.
Yeah. Exactly. Like verbal cues. And sometimes then that'll get them going. And sometimes, they'll be struggling at the beginning and then they'll hit their flow and then you can't get them to stop. So like, it's kind of a double-edged sword there, but yeah, you just, people do get nervous. I get it, you know? So you just try to make them feel as comfortable as possible. So
the show here, the Fox17 Morning Mix, it's kind of gone through a couple of transformations since its origin, right? So it originally had a different host besides Todd even, right?
Yep. Leanne Town.
Yeah. Okay. And then Todd switched over from the world of radio to come over here.
Yep.
If I remember Andrea's story correctly.
Yep.
And then after Todd had been hosting for a while, they're like, hey, we need to get another person on this show to kind of bring another different kind of energy or whatever it was. How did you end up being that person?
Well, I was anchoring the morning news during that time. So when I originally came to Fox 17, I started as the morning news anchor with Tessa DeHiro. And then I had been doing that for about 8 months. And my GM had come to me and said, hey, I have an opportunity for you. And it was to be the co-host of the Morning Mix, but also a leadership position at the station. So I'm the community relationship manager. So that was a brand new position that they created, and they wanted to fill that role, but then they also needed someone for the morning mix. So she kind of put two jobs together and was like, hey, how about this for an opportunity? So, always up for a challenge. I was like, well, this is gonna, I don't know what this community relationship manager is or does because it hadn't existed. So it's kind of been, learn as I go, piece this, together and see what works and what I can do to help our station connect with community organizations, with our partners. We've got many partners that we work with. And I will say that being able to be the co-host is a really great fit because these jobs play well together. So I'm able to bring in different nonprofits, different organizations to help fill our show with the good things, all the events, all the ways that people can give back to their community. And so that I love having that platform and being able to fill our show with these people who are doing such great work in our community.
Do you have advice specifically for people who want to be on TV in some kind of news or news related type capacity like what you're in? What's kind of your so you're 18 to 20 years old and you want to get on TV. Here's what you need to do first.
Journalism is important. Writing, crucial. Broadcast writing is very different than newspaper writing or writing college papers and things like that. So get into the writing aspect. You do have to be inherently curious. You have to like people. So if those are not things that you are into, don't do this. And I mean, I think history is important. I think that you really kind of need to know like what happened before to be able to put things into context. And just be willing to work and go anywhere and do all of the things. Find a mentor and latch onto them and ask their advice and do internships at small stations. So like when I worked in Iowa, we had an intern from UW-Platteville. So he was a student, but he essentially worked. He was a reporter. He was literally walked out with like, he had a job and he ended up, he was working. My internship was great for a connection, but I didn't get any real skills. Logging tape is not hard.
Logging tape and getting copies. And
any bozo could have done that internship. So it was all for the connections. Whereas take an internship, at a small station where you're able to touch everything, do everything. They're going to put you to work and they're going to use you. We right now aren't taking interns. We haven't had interns since COVID. So that's, and they do pay interns now. Whereas like my internship cost me, like $12,000 or something between train tickets, parking, tuition, and all the things. I was like, this is the most expensive class ever.
Say, there's always that joke people say, indentured servitudes are still around. They're just called interns now.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I would just say really get into a newsroom and try it out and make sure that this is the route you want to take and make those connections, talk to everyone, ask lots of questions.
Yeah.
And if you have a certain interest as well, like I think that there's room for that too. Like if you want to be like a beat reporter or certain, unless you really just want to work for a local television station, I think that more focused, finding something you really want to be an expert at is going to behoove you.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. My next question was going to be, what advice do you have just for anybody who wants to do something creative? But I think a lot of those things tie over. If you can find somebody who's already doing what you want to do or kind of what you want to do, try to get in with them, ask them every question you can, and just look for the experience of actually doing it.
For any job. I really think, being the mom of a teenager and knowing, I was lucky. I went to a high school that had the highest powered high school radio station in the country. We had a full working television station. That's how I got into this in the beginning.
Wow.
Is that I had all that experience from high school.
Yeah.
And I had great teachers. So that's how I got into it. But like, I think for any kid or any person even that wants to do something, try it.
Mm-hmm.
Go meet the people doing it, sit with them, be there, experience it, and make sure that's because I think that people have an idea of what a TV job is like. It's not necessarily what you think, right? Be in the trenches and figure it out. And you may or may not continue to want to. And if you do, well then, hey, more power to you.
Yeah.
Call me up. I'll help you. But,
and for younger people out there listening to this too, I would stress that along with what you said, find out if you like it, but if you don't think of it as wasted time either, because you're going to get skills from anything that you kind of like throw yourself into, or, you might just network with people that can help you down the line too. So don't think of it as, well, if I don't do this, then I just wasted 4 months of my life. Like, no, you tried something, you got out there, you met people, you picked up skills that maybe you didn't realize you even picked up.
100%. And by the way, wasting 4 months of your life is better than wasting 10 years of your life doing something that you hate.
The craziest opportunity that you got because of working in television?
I got to ride with the Blue Angels.
You actually got to go inside one of the Blue Angel?
Yes.
Nice. I
got to fly with the Blue Angel.
Now, I'm jealous because I was in the Navy and I was actually stationed while I was going to school for my job in Pensacola. And I got to watch them practice 3 or 4 times a week or however often they practiced. So I've seen them do their near misses, and they're getting 2 feet away from each other, to the point where after a while I was just kind of like, oh, yep, there they are again.
Right.
But to actually get in there,
it was epic. I'd worked at the Cherry, 9 and 10 News at the Cherry Festival for many, many years. I waited my turn because every other year they would come in and I'm like, okay, when's it my turn? When do I get, if I'm going to be here for this long, I get to ride with the Blue Angels. And man, it did not disappoint. It was actually the year I had my baby, my daughter, so that's a long time ago. She was born in May. And so then this happened in July. So I was not in like the best of shape. But I'm a daredevil and I'll do just about anything. Things don't like, I get scared of like gory horror stuff, but like I've jumped out of airplanes. I'll do whatever. And man, I was like, bring it. And man, he did a 780. I passed out.
I was just going to ask you, did you stay conscious the whole time?
I did not. I tried so hard, but I will tell you that was the weirdest feeling ever.
Because they give you tips like tighten the muscles in your legs,
the hick maneuver.
take a deep breath.
Yeah, you kind of push up on your diaphragm with your breath. You kind of hold it and push. It's a weird, the hick maneuver is what they call it. And I tried, but my abs were like a mess from being pregnant. And so I had nothing.
For people who don't know, women's stomachs go through a whole bunch of stuff. The muscles separate. It's a whole thing.
Yeah. So I was not in my A-shape game, but so yeah, we were doing a 780 and I passed out, and all I remember him being like, Michelle, because they you don't wear the mask, like the sunglasses, like they have it flipped up. So, you know, you can see it. And there's, of course, video of it. My eyes like roll back into my head. And my head, like, he's like, Michelle. And I'm like, I wake up, I'm like, where am I? And I'm looking around. I'm like, holy shit. I'm like, I'm in a fighter jet right now. And I don't know where I'm at. I was like, ah. Yeah.
And he's doing the, Michelle, put your shoes on. We're at grandma's.
He's like, hey, Michelle. And I'm like, oh my God. Yes, it was amazing though. I would do it again in a heartbeat. It was just the coolest thing. And I wish I would have been a pilot, truthfully. Like, shame on me for not joining the military and becoming a pilot. That in my second life, I'm going to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man. I was not expecting you to say Blue Angels. I was expecting you to say like, I got to meet Dave Matthews once or something like that. Blue Angels. That's about as cool an experience as I think anybody could have, unless they hate flying.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you got to have a little bit of a.
Because I mean, pretty much from the time they start to take off, you're just.
They go straight up. Yeah. I mean, they take off and they go straight up. And it's up in Traverse City. So it's like they go over the Leelanau Peninsula. You're over Lake Michigan. It is the most stunning thing, you know. And then I had a pilot one time who let me fly his plane, not the Navy pilot.
Okay.
But because the air show, we would get to ride up in these planes all the time. And so one guy was like, he let me do a loop-de-loop. Like, he's like, here, you pull all the way back. And I did. And we went upside down. And then we were doing barrel rolls. He's like, just turn all the way to the right. And I was like, okay. And at first I was like, no way. And he's like, just do it. You're never going to do it. I'm like, okay. So we were doing barrel rolls. I went all the way upside down. He let me fly all the way back toward the airport. He's like, okay, and he said I did a great job. But once I saw the airport, I'm like, okay, you need to take over because I don't want to crash us.
Yeah. You want to try to land, Michelle?
I was like, stop. I'm like, you're crazy, dude. But that was awesome too. But yeah. Man. I love to fly. And my mom was a flight attendant, so I grew up in an airplane. So
that's on my bucket list. I'm going to be one of those guys. If I ever become like a famous novelist who makes stupid amounts of money, I'm taking pilot lessons.
I would love to do that too.
Yeah.
That would be one thing I would love to do before I die.
Yeah.
And play the drums.
Community relations manager.
Yeah.
Because we were talking about him before we started here, Mike Logan. Him and I had talked about you after you interviewed him the first time, because I think Todd had done the first couple interviews that he was on here, and he was like, I get to get interviewed by Michelle today. This is my first time talking to her. I was like, oh, she's great. You're going to love it. Then afterwards he was like, man, that woman really loves this city. Like, some people have to be like, oh yeah, this city's so great because they work for, you know, the news station that covers that city. But we both were like, yeah, no, she genuinely really seems to like getting out there in the community and doing things like, and I've seen you a couple times with Lions and Rabbits at their art festivals.
Mm-hmm. Yep. After dark.
And then I saw you just a couple days ago at the West Michigan Whitecaps game. So yeah, you're actually out there really getting knee deep in things that are going on, not just when you have to at work.
I try to, and I do love this community. I mean, that is no joke. You know, I grew up in Chicago, and then worked in Iowa for a short time, and then spent 20 years in northern Michigan at 9 and 10 News. So I lived in Cadillac for 20 years. And I don't know how that happened, but it did. And we, you know, Grand Rapids was kind of our close city, you know, and my husband's from the east side of the state and I'm from Chicago. So we were definitely doing those trips. But when we wanted kind of a city experience, we would come here. We'd go to Broadway, Grand Rapids. We'd come here to eat, to shop, to do things. And so I knew a little about Grand Rapids, but man, just being here has just been amazing. The generosity of this community is fantastic. The arts community is ridiculous.
Yeah.
I love all of the things that are happening here, and it's exciting to be a part of it.
Yeah.
I really, people here are just very giving and want to help and do good things, and that resonates with me. So.
Yeah. And I thank you too on behalf of the artistic community for all of the things that you do, both on the show and just, you know, separately in your personal life, because there is kind of a feeling, I think, amongst a lot of artists that certain parts of the city or certain factions or just whatever you want to call it don't fully appreciate the artistic community. So when you see people who are part of, you know, the media landscape kind of joining in and saying like, no, this is worthwhile. We should be investing in these artists and these organizations that promote the artists through events and things like that. It's it's nice and it's refreshing to see.
Well, thanks. Where would we be without art? I just don't, without music, without, our city is so beautiful and colorful. Many thanks to, Lions and Rabbits and to all of the dozens and dozens of artists who have contributed in their own way to making our city more beautiful. It just, economically it makes sense, and I don't necessarily always want to think about that, but, it makes you feel good, right? To drive around and to see all of this and
to see the murals on the walls or the painted parking, what do they call those? Parking ticket huts, I guess.
Right. I mean, the electrical boxes, the storm drains, and then even the performing arts. I love, Civic Theater, Broadway, Grand Rapids.
Yeah.
We have so many great music venues in this town. Meyer Gardens. I could go on. So we are blessed here to have as vibrant of a scene as we do, and I just hope that everybody can embrace it and help it thrive.
Yeah. Yeah. There really is a lot of good theater here too, from Broadway, Grand Rapids, the Civic Theater. A couple of years ago, I went and saw a play that was put on by, I got to remember what it was called. The Grand Rapids Jewish Theater Organization.
Okay.
I think that's what it was called. Something to that effect. Lots of choices for art, music, and theater here. More than you would think for a city that's not a big city, not when you're talking about like a Chicago or LA, New York, San Francisco. But there's more than enough to keep people busy here.
That's what I think, and I love that. And I think that so many people describe Grand Rapids as that way, is that it's like the big little city or the little big city.
People are always surprised when they find out how many offerings there are.
Mm-hmm, for sure. Yeah. And we're lucky.
All right. I want to switch lanes here a little bit and talk about the journey of a person who works in television. Like you said, you've been here, you've been there, now you're here. When you work in media, it seems like, especially probably when you're younger, you just have to go where the opportunities are, and that's rarely in your own backyard.
Yeah. And my journey is a little different than most. I've been able to stay relatively close to home in the Midwest. I know plenty of people who've gone all over the country and been very, very far from home. And plenty of people who've gotten out of the business because it's not an easy, it's changing daily. Like so many other careers, you have to do more with less, and you have to wear many, many hats. Things that when I started in this business that didn't, social media didn't exist,
Right.
But neither did a smartphone and a map on your phone. I had an atlas in the back of the car with every county in Michigan, and we had to find our way to get places. And, Northern Michigan is amazing, but boy, you can get lost.
And if you get lost, it can be an hour before you get back where you started.
You're like, where am I? I'm on a 2 track. Great. So it takes a dedication. Like people who are doing this job now, I applaud them because you really want to do it, because it's kind of thankless. The pay isn't the best. I think people think that TV people make a lot of money. They don't. It's like any journalist, Well,
and like you said about doing more with less. I remember the first time I came in, I was talking to Andrea, and I was just watching you and Todd from the side, and I was like, man, Todd's a good looking dude. Who do you guys have, like people that do his hair or makeup and his clothing? And she's like, nope, they all pick out their own clothes, they all do their own makeup. And then I was looking around the studio, I was like, where are all the cameramen? She just points to one guy behind the computer. I'm like, oh, that one guy does all these. Like, oh man, it's just a handful of people in here.
Yeah. And I'm so surprised at how many people ask about the hair and makeup, because in my wildest dreams would someone come in and do my hair and makeup for me every day. That person's me, but it's okay. I don't mind it. And, in the very upper echelons, does that exist? And there are, the Katie Courics of the world and things like that. When you get to, Good Morning America, they operate that way. But most local television stations are pretty bare bones, and people have to do a lot of jobs.
You said you started out in Chicago?
I went to Columbia College in Chicago and did my internship at WMAQ, the NBC affiliate in Chicago, which was an interesting place to do an internship back in the day. Their union shop. I really couldn't touch anything. And you talk about they had a huge staff. So I worked for Joan Esposito. Any old time Chicagoans would know her. She was a wonderful health reporter. She was pregnant at the time, so she didn't go out and do too much. She was like the 4 or 5 o'clock anchor plus the health reporter. But she had 2 producers who went out and did all these shoots. They had photographers and editors and everything else. So I got to sit in and see how they operated. But I did a lot of logging tape and a lot of autograph requests and a lot of runs to Dairy Queen for blizzards because she was pregnant. So it was an interesting look. But my first job in Iowa, it was really, it was more of, baptism by fire. It was like, hi, you did 1-2 stories in a semester for your college news station. Now you have to turn a story by yourself every single day. And it's hard, It was a great learning experience. And
how did you actually find that job in Iowa? Was it like posted on a college job board, or did you know somebody who knew somebody?
So there were specific websites for TV jobs.
Okay.
And back in the day, I used to send out VHS tapes. So I spent out like probably 80 and got maybe 2 calls. Wow. I was working at Express on Michigan Avenue in Chicago, and doing pretty well at that job. And I just was sending out tapes. So it was super expensive to make the tapes, to send the tapes. Yeah. Like applying for a job was a job.
Yeah. I was going to say making all those tapes too. Even if you had access to a studio, you could probably only make a couple at a time.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a lot. So, I'm very grateful.
VHS is a big squarish black looking thing with 2 holes in it, kind of like a cassette, which if you don't know what that is, then I forget you.
I know.
You're too young.
They're now clogging up all our landfills. Yeah. So then I got that job and I was there for a year and 4 months. I ended up doing the weather because we had a meteorologist who wanted to go on vacation. There was one guy. And so he's like, well, you got to train Michelle how to do the weather, and had no clue what I was doing, not trained at all. And
I've always wondered how many of the people who do the weather actually went to school and were meteorologists, and how many of them were just in TV and they're like, hey, can you do the weather?
Well, that was me in Iowa. Here, they're all meteorologists. They're all, they've all done all of the work. There's a lot of math. There's a lot of science involved.
Yeah.
And I will say forecasting West Michigan is probably one of the hardest places to forecast in the nation.
I really do feel like just from town to town, each one has its own microclimate.
Oh, for sure. 100%. And right, it's Michigan, wait 5 minutes or drive 5 miles and the weather will change. And, the Great Lakes do a number on our weather stuff. So they're good at what they do.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you were watching KFXB back in the late 1990s, hopefully you weren't trusting me for your weather, because I was watching the Weather Channel. Yeah. So I did everything there, and then ended up getting the job in Cadillac, and it was relatively close to Chicago. I'd been to Mackinac Island. I'd been to Boyne. I'd been up there. So I was like, oh yeah, let's do it. And 20 years later.
Yeah, because Cadillac, it's kind of the middle of nowhere. You're not too far from Ferris State University.
I was like Big Rapids, yeah.
Big Rapids is probably the closest
Traverse City.
Traverse
City
town, or
Traverse City is turning into a big city at this point. And
Northern
really Michigan is a great place to be. I love the people. I loved living there. And 20 years means I did 20 cherry festivals, and it's nice to be somewhere where stories are new for me. There's some novelty to it.
When did you see an opportunity open up in Grand Rapids? How did that kind of come about?
So my husband had gotten a job that required travel. So he was driving from Cadillac to here to fly out. And so we were like, our daughter was in middle school. And so it was like, well, now or never, we're kind of city folk. And I really, I missed the city and all of the beautiful things that a city brings.
For anybody listening out there, which is everybody, because there's no video, the face that she made when she said, we're really city folk, it was like eyes up, just whole face like, I need the city.
Yeah. I loved Cadillac, and I love our friends there, and I love the memories we made, and it was a great place to raise a young child, but we needed a bigger scope. So yeah, we were trying to decide where to go. We wanted to be close to an airport. We picked GR, and here I am.
And then were you from that point on just looking and waiting for opportunities here, or did something just kind of present itself out of nowhere?
Well, so I didn't think I wanted to continue in television. So I ended up getting a job at Spartan Nash and in internal communications. And so I took that job and very quickly realized that was not the best use of my talents. I made some forever friends there, and I'm still super tight with them. We work well together still, which is awesome that I still get to work with these people who I met there. But it definitely just wasn't a use of what I do well.
Yeah.
So I had talked to my boss and they were still looking for a morning anchor, and she's like, well, come do a screen test. Let's get you in. And I did, and they hired me, and I'm still here.
Yeah. What time do you show up for work here?
So I have a really great schedule. That's another good thing about what I do is I get here usually 7:30, 7:45.
Okay.
And we do
that
the
beats
show.
one.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. And then, we'll have shoots, so we'll have things after the show to do, or meetings and things like that. Otherwise, I work from home quite a bit, which is great.
I am curious about the show and kind of like the schedule that you guys keep. So kind of walk me through a little bit of a normal day. You said you get here a little before 8:00.
Yep.
And then what are you doing for that hour or so before the show starts? And then, that however long after the show.
So before the show, pretty much the same every day. Get in, I start writing the stories that I need to write for our show, writing all the intros to our interviews, things like that, making sure we're going over all the media sheets so we know what we're talking about.
All the things for like day of
Yep.
kind of things?
Yep.
Okay.
So I'm getting all that stuff prepped and making sure that I've read everything and that everything's written.
And are you doing all of that research yourself too?
Some of it,
Like you said, my next guest's one leg is longer than the other. I'm like, this sounds like me.
Yes.
Hold on a second.
So I do that research, you guys, because you know how the drill is. So if someone comes on our show, they provide us a media sheet with kind of the questions that they want to discuss and a little bit of background, any necessary links, websites, things like that. And so we use that to formulate our intros and then to know what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you do a little bit of legwork to make sure that if someone's leg is longer than the other or what have you.
I see what you did there.
Right. So yeah, so we do that. So we know what we're talking about. And then I go till 8 a.m. and then is that right? No, 9 a.m. And then I go get ready, do my hair and makeup, and then get ready for the show and go on, do that. Takes an hour usually. And then after the show, it just depends on the day. Some days we'll go somewhere for a shoot. I get buried in emails daily. So I go through all my emails. I work on the community stuff. I have a lot of meetings.
Do people reach out to you not knowing that that's not the right way and just being like, oh, it's the lady from TV. Hey, can I come be a guest on the show?
People do. And you know what? I'm okay with that. If you have people are always like, how do we get in touch with you? And I'm like, you know what? Email is the best way. Sometimes they get lost. But if you have a story, we always want to hear from you.
Mm-hmm.
Because we don't know if we don't know what we don't know. And we try to have our finger on the pulse of all of our communities we cover, but it can be hard and there's a lot going on. And, we are beyond Grand Rapids. We are Muskegon. We are, Ottawa County. We are Kalamazoo. So it's just hard to know all the things. And so I encourage people to have story ideas. If they have something an event coming up or they run a nonprofit that they think, people need to know about, let us know.
Yeah.
Email us, michelle.dunaway@fox17online.com.
Here's one for the listeners. For people who are like, well, yeah, that's great, but I don't know how to do it. I sent, actually, I didn't know how to do it either the right way. And Mike, another shout out to Mike Logan. Hey, buddy. He was the one who was like, hey, man, I talked to the people at Fox17. You want to be on TV? I was like, yes. He's like, cool. Write up a press
release.
A press release thing.
Mm-hmm.
Write up a press release, send it to me, and then I'll let you know if it looks right, and then you can send it to them. Yeah. So I did. He was like, little editing. He was like, that's good. Send that to Andrea now. Do you recommend people put it into press release format when they try to get your attention for something like that?
It doesn't necessarily have to be in press release format. It sometimes helps, but just make sure you get the most important information up top. What you're talking about.
Don't write
why is
18 paragraphs about it.
We all have very limited time. I don't want to read, your
Bullet
life story.
points.
Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's going on? Why is this important? When is it? What do you want from us?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it does not have to be formal by any stretch. And we just, we stop.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yep. I stop for 2 seconds?
Yeah. All right. And we're back. The juice people came, so Michelle had to run around the station telling everyone that there was juice.
Well, it's health month, and I'm also kind of in charge of employee engagement. So this was part of our health month activities where we got clean juice and Cascade to come and bring us all some fresh juice. So I got you the youthful one.
Ooh, thank you.
I'm drinking the double one, whatever that means.
Yeah, if you're going to make me wait, but you're going to give me something delicious to drink, then absolutely no harm, no foul.
Well, good. Yeah. Well, I'm glad to provide. Thanks for waiting.
So, yeah, we left off with kind of how to present things to you or somebody else from the crew that they want to get on TV. And I think we did a pretty good job of that. Just kind of keep it short and sweet. And if possible, kind of lead with why it might be interesting. Like, I think when I sent out my first press release to Andrea, I titled it something like Local Veteran Rights Novel. Yeah. It's like, oh, there you go.
Exactly. Make sure that the title of your email too is pertinent to what you're talking about, because I do get bombarded with emails daily. And so it's just, but I try to look at every single one. So, and be persistent too. If you send it once, maybe send it one more time, you know? I
think Andrea had said something like, if you don't hear something back after a week, feel free to be like, hey, just want to make sure you saw this.
Yeah. And don't feel insulted. Literally, it's just we get and sometimes I will be like, okay, I need to follow up with this, and then it just gets buried and then I forget about it. So a good reminder never hurts.
And don't be a dick about it. Like, hey, I sent you guys an email. This is a way better story than the normal crap you covered.
Right. That's a good way to not get your story covered, for sure. What not to do. Don't insult us. Thank you. We're doing our best. We're all just doing our best.
Said you get to kind of take a break from here's a tragedy, here's a political thing, and just be like, look at these cute puppies.
Yes. And that is the beauty of the morning mix, is that, and people, we're on at a weird time. So we're on from 10 to 11 weekdays. So it's not super convenient for people to watch. So, but people who do catch us or see our segments online, they are always like, well, that's really happy. Like it's good stuff, right? It's not going to make you feel bad. We talk about good things, and there's lots of opportunities and events that are happening in your town. And we're usually having a good time. So it's pretty easy television to watch.
Yeah. When you were doing more straight news, did you ever find yourself kind of like being like, more stories like this? Or do you kind of have that professional separation where you can kind of just like detach yourself emotionally from those things?
It goes back and forth. You do detach occasionally, which then and you'll realize it because something horrible happened. You'll be like, oh, another da-da-da. And you're just like, whatever. But at the same time, like Sandy Hook, to me, my daughter was in kindergarten. And I remember I was working the morning show. I remember like 9/11, I was working in the newsroom. So like I've lived in some of these, and it's just earth shattering, and it's hard, right? Because you have to constantly talk about it, and it wears you.
Yeah. Because while everybody else is just kind of sitting in front of the television numb, you're on the television delivering it and trying to not look like you're just a complete wreck while you're doing it.
Exactly. And so, obviously you have to have a certain sense of decorum and kind of keep it together. But it's hard, and it definitely wears on you. It's
Andrea said it was a mentally step towards a better mental outlook, just in general, kind of getting away from the news.
Right. I mean, we're still here, we're still around it, but we're very much, we're still bringing the good. We're bringing all the good, all the happy. So,
well, without thinking of it in terms of cons, what are just some things that maybe people don't realize about your job? Like, I'm sure, you've said people are always like, oh, who does your hair and your makeup? Yeah. Things like that. What are some things that people go, oh, that's part of what you do?
I think that they don't there's a lot of work that goes into putting a show together. An hour of television is, there's just a lot to it. And I think
you guys do a great job of just making it feel very casual and like, we're just doing our thing over here,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you. And so, there's a lot of work behind the scenes. There's a lot of people who are doing a lot of work to making sure our show looks as good as it does every single day. Mm-hmm. And so Although you're right, it's still smaller than people might expect.
Yeah.
It's still a lot of people working together. And I think, you know, I just wish that sometimes people would give us a little more grace sometimes, because it is hard, and we don't always know what's going on, and we do make mistakes. And so not necessarily with our show as much as the news side, but we're all doing our best. And I'm sorry if something falls through the cracks, or, if something was portrayed in a light that you didn't want it to be, or
I'm sure I've had it on this show before. I won't say names, but you could probably find clues if you listen a lot to figure out who it was. I've had especially one interview where after it was done and it was published and I got to know the person, I was just like, ugh. And
felt dirty.
And a couple of times I've hovered over the episode and gone, I'm just going to delete it. But then I'm like, well, if I do have any journalistic integrity, I kind of just got to stick by what I've said and what I've done, and, just kind of learn from it. And if anybody confronts me on it, be like, yeah, I wish it would have gone the other way, but that's the way it went.
Yeah. And so, I think that's with any job or anything you're doing, I just think.
How are you going to make that person, give that person a, like, well, I already did. It's too late now, but.
Right. So, I just wish that people would just be nicer.
Yeah.
And I am grateful, because the mix, we don't get that, but I get all those emails that people write that are not nice. And that is a hard part of this job. And, my old station, we did a story about all of the evil emails. I got some really crazy ones growing up. Like, I grew up basically on TV. I was pregnant on TV, and, I'll get this email like, my husband and I have a bet. Like, I say you're pregnant. He says you've been eating too much potato salad. I'm like, well, I hate potato salad. Yes, I'm pregnant. Okay. And then I had an email once. The guy asked if I had a glass eye. We're like, we have a bet that you have a glass eye, and that our meteorologist at the time, Dan Lee, has a toupee. And I was like, okay, I don't know about Dan. I'm not going to speak for him, but I definitely don't have a glass eye. Like, people are weird, and those are funny stories, but people can be very, very, very mean and be very critical of somebody's appearance. And I'm like, you know what?
I was going to say, between being on television and just being a woman in this society, I'm sure you've gone through all of the thoughts and heard all of the things that people have to say about it.
Yeah.
Because I saw it on, I think on an Instagram reel recently, where a woman who was pregnant and had just had a baby, somebody like commented like, if you're going to be on TV, maybe you shouldn't wear stuff that shows off your gut. And like, she's like, well, I did just have a baby. Right. I'm working on that, but thank you for telling me that. Maybe next time you could say something that's not mean, or say something that's more constructive.
Hi, I just grew a human, so please, back off.
Yeah.
Don't mess with the lady who just had the baby. Like, it shocks me that people have the gall to just, everyone can sit and be a critic from your, lazy boy at home on the internet, and so shame on you people who do that. Sorry. That's just, that's uncalled for. And I wish every person who was going to be critical of our appearance could send in their photo, and we could be like, well, what do you look like? Because where is this coming from? It's just,
Do you think Todd gets a fair amount of that too?
No,
not as much.
No.
I was going to say,
guys don't.
Women seem to be more openly critiqued. Although I will say, as a bald guy, I've had a lot of people that are just walking up and they're like, oh, you're bald, huh? When did you start going bald? I'm like, wow, you're rude, huh? Like,
right. I'd rather be bald than rude, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I'm 41 now. I'm over it. It's just part of who I am, and I grow my hair out in spite of having this big spot on top. You have a lot of hair,
so
and it's thick, and people don't know, and they think I'm always trying to. Are you hiding? That's another question people give me all the time that I just met. Oh, do you wear a hat a lot to hide your bald spot? And I go, no, the sun bakes my head after 5 minutes in the sun, so I have to wear this.
Right.
I enjoy not wearing a hat, but it becomes that, or trying to put lather up this semi bald spot on my head and getting it all in the hair that is there.
Do you use product in your hair?
No. I wash and condition it from time to time, but besides that, No, it just does
I was gonna
this.
say, I have curly hair too, so I can relate. But I beat my hair into submission daily, so and use a lot of product. But,
Yeah. Nope. I sometimes I'll use a diffuser with a hair blower or a hair dryer, and I'll just kind of work it around a little bit, and that really puffs it out.
Mm-hmm.
But no, these curls just happen.
Well, if you want to get a little control, a little gel on the curls sometimes. I know it's an extra step.
Yeah, I might too, because right now it's just at that length where it still wants to poof, but it also kind of wants to start to lay back a little bit. I don't know if you saw me before. I had hair down to my shoulders for a minute there, and at that point, I just straight back with it. But right now, it's still
a pony with that almost.
Oh yeah, I was doing little like sumo buns.
I love it. Yeah, I'm here for that for sure.
How long were you away from television?
Like a year.
Okay, so it was a pretty quick dip.
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
into something else.
Dip a toe in, and I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, gave it just enough time to be like, I really need something else.
Yeah. And I've been doing this for a long time. So
I was gonna say, from the time that you got that internship to now, was that the only time that you had really tried something else?
I did for a hot second. I was working the morning show for a very long time at 9 and 10, which is just a grueling schedule. And we had a 4.5-hour show. I was waking up at like 12:30, getting to work at 1:30. It was they were long shifts. It was a lot of work.
I was going to say, are you going to sleep at like 7 p.m.?
Out. Yeah. I was trying to do a split shift sleep schedule. So I'd sleep a little in the afternoon and sleep a little at night.
Which only works for so long.
It was tough. And so I got out of the business there, and I worked for the Cadillac Area Visitors Bureau for a couple of months and did that.
I could see you being really good at that.
And I think I was just too young, and I hadn't had enough life experience. I think that would have been a good fit. I was working for a board. It was hard. I was the only one there. So it was a hard job for me to do. But I think if I would have tried a little longer, I probably would have figured it out. But I didn't. I went back into news. Yeah. So, yes, twice I've tried to do other things and keep coming back.
But the universe keeps going, no, Michelle, punishment. You need to be on television.
I guess. You only have so many skills.
Yeah.
I can ride horses and do TV. That's about it.
Have you rode horses on TV?
Gosh, I don't think I have.
That's your next story. You go out to one of the riding stables.
Yeah. I took some polo lessons here for a bit, but yeah.
Like the polo that you play and you hit the thing with the mallet on the horse?
Yeah.
You're on the horse and you hit the thing with the mallet.
Yeah. Hit the ball with the mallet on the horse. Yes. Yeah. It's hard.
It looks hard.
Riding the horse is easy. Hitting the ball with the mallet, hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you only have so much control over that horse. You can't. It's not like riding a bike and go, I need to get it right here.
Yeah. No, and that the mallet is long and it's kind of heavy, and my hand-eye coordination is not the best. So yeah, I will not be a champion polo player. That's for sure.
Yeah, whenever I think polo, I always think of the royal family, because you always see the pictures of them.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
all decked out.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I was probably not in the right tax bracket to be playing polo anyway.
You've gotten really into hosting and doing things like that. How did you get into the hosting thing?
Well, the first gig was, I did it up north a little bit. I think people just inherently believe that if you're on TV, you can host an event. And you can. I think a lot of us are pretty decent at that.
Yeah.
Some of us like it more than others.
You're used to the eyes on you. You're used to reading off of a prompter.
Right, but as you know, sitting in the studio is nothing like standing in front of a group of 700 people.
Right, when talking. The eyes are really on you.
Yeah. Like it's kind of like, there's people watching, but I don't know who and how many and whatever. There's only like 3 people in this room. But when you're standing on a stage in front of people, I love it. Especially for organizations that I'm a part of. Yeah. But my first, I really was doing the Winter Games for Special Olympics Michigan was my first. And that, I'll talk about a fun event to MC, because it's a party. They got a DJ playing all the music, everyone's dancing, everyone's having a good time.
Yeah.
And I'm on the board of Special Olympics Michigan because of that. Like,
that's
literally
awesome.
That was my foot in the door, and I started becoming really involved. And now it's been such a great journey. It's such an awesome organization, and we're doing great things. As far as Special Olympics is concerned, we've got our Inclusion Center, Byron Center, that is the largest Special Olympics training facility in the world.
Oh, that's cool.
We are bringing in different events and things that, is putting Grand Rapids on a national, international stage. So, or Michigan even too. So, I'm really proud to be a part of that. And that was really my first regular hosting gig. And now, I hosted the Red Shoe Gala for Ronald McDonald House before I moved here, because I was really involved with them up north, because they really wanted to educate the public about what they do. Because obviously, for the people here, they're not necessarily using the house, but the people up north were the ones who were. So that they were on a big campaign with our station to raise money and awareness for the house. And so I walked from Traverse City to Cadillac to raise money and tell stories. In a day. It was almost 50 miles. We raised $30,000. And then the following year, I rode my bike from Cadillac to the house, and it was a little less, 20 some thousand. But that organization got really near and dear to me as well. But I welcome the opportunity. If you need an MC, I do it. It's fun. I love doing Paws, Claws, and Corks with Michelle McCormick. We have fun. She's a riot. And I just actually am on the board for Boys and Girls Club now too. So, and I've done their Be Great tailgate too. So,
okay. Yeah. So a lot of these things were actually something that came up because you were already involved with them. It wasn't like hey, who would be a good host? Is that Michelle?
Well, and sometimes that does come up hey, and part of our community partners, here at the station, they're always looking for MCs. And so I'll do it. Yeah. Yeah.
It's probably one of those things where once you get a little business, then that just by itself drums up a little more business type of thing.
And being the community relationship manager, it kind of fits under my role anyway.
Yeah.
So, and I feel bad asking other people to work when they're not working, for sure. And especially people on the morning show, Elliot always is one to say yes to stuff and Janice, but when it's a weeknight event and you got to work the next morning, I'm I'm not going to ask you to do that, and then it's the nightside crew is working. So it just ends up that it's easy for me to do.
Yeah.
So. What's your favorite restaurant? Last meal. Where would you go?
That's tough. There is a place that does the best burgers I've ever had on Kalamazoo Avenue, right next to Della Soul Records.
Okay.
It's called Wishes.
Oh, okay.
And
Kalamazoo and what?
Oh. Gosh, I wish I knew what that was. It's right around the corner from Last Mile Cafe.
Okay. I know exactly what that is.
Yeah. I actually was interviewing Foster from the Diatribe at Last Mile Cafe. And when we wrapped up, he's like, hey, man, you like burgers? I was like, yeah. He's like, you have to go to Wishes. It's the best burger ever. And he actually was like, I want you to take a video of yourself taking your first bite and send it to me. I was like, that's weird. Must be a really good burger. And I took the video like he said, and I took the first bite and my eyes just rolled back in my head.
Okay. Well, I might have to go get a burger. Well, I appreciate you. Thank you for making me a part of this.
Yeah. Do you have any final thoughts? Anything you want to say to the people listening? Anything that you want to say to creative people out there that maybe aren't reaching their creative potential? Anything like that?
Oh man, just have faith in yourself and keep doing what you're doing. Don't let a failure, a rejection, a disappointment stop you on your journey.
Yeah.
And don't see it as that. See it as an opportunity for growth, and take those lessons and run with them.
Yeah.
And it's taken me a long time to learn that. And it's sometimes, obviously, it's hard to put into practice, right?
Yeah.
It's really easy to not believe in yourself.
Same.
But,
Same here.
right?
I feel like it took me 35 years to just realize, oh, if you go with the flow, then you'll start to see opportunities. You can't always fight and say, oh, no, I need this thing and I need it this way. Just kind of take what you get and keep your eyes open.
And things will happen, right?
Yeah.
Things that are meant to be will happen.
Yeah.
But you do have to keep your eyes open, and you do have to be open to it.
Yeah.
And be grateful for all the things.
Yeah. Like I wouldn't have met you or Andrea if I hadn't met somebody through doing this podcast, who then we became friends, and he eventually said, hey, I see you working out there, so why don't I help you out?
Right.
And then introduce me to all you guys. So
And it's a lot of who you know too. Like, right? Meet all the people.
meet all the people.
Yeah.
Talk to them, whether it's a CEO or a homeless guy. You're going to learn something new.
For sure.
Yeah.
And aren't we lucky, right?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for letting me come in and check out the new studio. And maybe when I get another book to drop out, we can
better
talk some
finish
more.
that book and come back.
Yeah. I'll come back for more juice if nothing else.
Right? Hopefully we'll see if we can have another juice day for you, Chris. Yeah.
Yeah. Call me when it's juice day. Michelle, thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
It's been great getting to know you.
Hey, I appreciate your time.
Catch Michelle Dunaway on the Fox17 Morning Mix out of Grand Rapids from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. to 11 a.m. And follow her and her show on social media and look them up on YouTube and watch their clips. And go to my store and pre-order my new book, ChristopherTalon.com. Mwah.